where I came from.
So it was you. Did you have any siblings, or it was you and your mom?
Yeah. Yeah. So my sister, she's 4 years younger than me. She's actually out in California now. She's in San Diego. So
Okay. Yeah, I love
yeah,
San Diego. So
yeah.
she's probably out there hanging out with dude, huh? My plug. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Yo to do. Yo to
Yo.
do. So all right.
Yes,
So then now you got to high school, because I know people like one of my good friends, he attended TF South, and he was literally like one of the first, black students there. So I would imagine you dealt with racism, and how did you handle that? How were you able? Did you go home? Did you explain to your mom, I'm dealing with this? And then what did she do to help you handle it? Did you go to the school counselor? How did that shake out?
So even starting before that, so like when I first started in elementary school, the very first day of elementary school, I walked over to the doors where you're supposed to be let in, and I got there a little early, and there were kids that were congregating in the area, and the first thing somebody said to me was, "What are you doing here, nigga?" So I laid him down, and then ended up in the principal's office.
Wow.
The first day I was there, Then
but you laid him down. Did anyone else call you that for the next?
No, it didn't happen after
Right.
But and then because I had that
Funny thing, huh? Didn't take much discussion. No legal discussion, no court cases. But go ahead.
It was, it was
no arbitration.
There's certain things you don't call for.
Agreed. So you went to the principal office. No, but I want to hear about that. So when you went to the principal office, they had that.
Yeah.
So were they on your side, or did they tell you shouldn't be punching them? Did he get suspended?
Well, no, I mom. So my mother is she's my queen, but she also was my disciplinarian.
Okay.
And, her attitude was, you don't let anybody take your opportunity to learn away from you. I don't care how stupid they are. So
knock you off your goal.
She very much believed in sparing the rod and you spoil a child. So he didn't whoop my behind, but she sure did. And but then after that, I got labeled as learning disabled and
what? Yeah, that's what they do. Attitude problem. This guy, top attorney. Yes, he's got an emotional problem because he knocked somebody out who called him the N-word.
Yeah,
Oh my God!
But what happened was
they do that in Chicago.
I know all the time, but I'm saying it happened to him. But here's what I'm saying. There's hims in the projects of Chicago that happened to that never become him because of it. Yeah, but go ahead.
Here's what I would say to that, right? There is no such thing as him, because I really, at the end of the day, there's no difference between me and somebody else, other than the fact that by the grace of God, I had my mother and my father. And then I got lucky when they split up. They both married quality human beings. I had four parents. Four
role model parents.
Grandparents were in my corner. I had aunts and man. When people tell you you can do something every day, when you have an aunt who you adore telling you you're going to be the president, what are you going to do, Mr. Leader? What are you going to do, Mr. Leader? You can't help but just believe in yourself. Absolutely. It's all about what gets poured into you. So absolutely, on a practical level, I find it interesting a lot of times when some folks will look at the successes that some of us have, some of us as African American people have, and say, boy, you're not like other people in your community. I don't believe that. I reject that. And frankly, I check that right when I hear it, because the only difference between me and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that you may not necessarily see on some screen somewhere is that they're doing it, but they just ain't on no screen. I mean, there are other lawyers that are excelling. I mean, you look at Ben, you look at Lee. I mean, and all of these people, they're succeeding.
Correct.
But I'm a member of the Cook County Bar Association. Hundreds of lawyers that are doing their thing every day.
Ken, just how I handle that, and I'll throw it to you, Tori. How I handle that, I've learned how to handle that because I hear that a lot. And to any pink person who may be watching, that's an extremely dog whistling, racially charged overture that's constantly made. You're smarter than the rest of them, but you're not like the rest of them, but you're different. What do you mean? And do you know what my response to that is, Cannon? Who are you? You're not like the rest of them either. And it makes them think, right? Yeah. So I hate to be that petty. Yeah, you know, and you're not like the rest of them. You know what I mean?
You know, but you know what you'll find sometimes is that people are just genuinely look. I see a big difference between ignorant
and stupidity. Correct.
Right. If you're ignorant because you literally don't know, I can't condemn you for what you literally don't know. And if you're open to learning, then I can rock with you. I can deal with that.
No doubt.
But when you think you know and you think you can drive someone else's narrative, that's when I recoil from dealing with you. I can't stomach that. Right.
Correct.
And I do believe in confronting those things that we know to be wrong, or that those things that need to be corrected immediately. I'm not really one that believes that you wait and you delay and you let something slide. I think the only way to really truly help people along in their process is to let them know at the point of attack when they've overstepped or when they've misconstrued or when they've misspoken. You do that at the point of attack and they learn then, because the imagery and the instance gets burned and etched into
the boundary set. The boundary has to be set, and you have to respect your boundary. If you don't respect your boundaries, no one else will.
That's right.
Period.
Yeah. Any advice for a kid or a teen from a similar background, like maybe Darren Randolph, going through what you went through, or Drew, the ridicule? You know, any advice for them where there's nobody really like them around?
You know, it's funny because it's a hard thing to deal with, right? Because you've got some people, because the fact that you're not like them, they admire it, or they're interested, or they're curious. You have some people, because you're not like them, they condemn you. You have this inner desire to try and look for, seek out, and be around people that are like you. So you have all of these different forces that you have to deal with internally, and that you have to figure out how to manage externally. And candidly, I don't know that I did all that good a job in it at all. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think I stumbled and fumbled all the way through it. I was extremely angry, and I resented where I was at and my environment. I think I was hypersensitive to being in that environment. I was resentful of anything that I remotely.
So how would you handle that now, knowing what you know now? I know it's unfair to a kid, but knowing what all that wisdom you know now, what would you go back and do if you were telling your kid, knowing all of that you know? Like, what could you tell them? Like, knowledge of self? Would you take them to the city every week to a pro-Black camp or something? Like, what solutions do you think would be to help somebody that's like, take them to a YMCA in the hood? What would you do?
So what I would do is I would tell people, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be openly honest with other people. That's not an easy thing to do, because I think the vulnerabilities that go along with it are pretty profound. But when you start, I mean, if I was, back when I was 10, 12, 14 years old in high school, I would have, I think if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been more upfront about, look, I wish I didn't feel this way, but I do, and looked for allies, because my suspicion is that there were other people that felt like I did and dealt with the things that I did. And I know that to be the case, because now when you're 35 and 40 and almost 50, you talk about what you went through.
And everybody went through it. Yeah. So maybe a support group, maybe something at the PTA, maybe the Black parents have to have an understanding that their children are going to be going through this. Because it seems to me that, not knocking your mom, or anybody's parents, but it seems to me like it would be simple to say, yeah, let's move out of the South Shore community to Glenbard, and this is a great school, and little Tori's going to be going to school there, and we're at work making money, and it's a good house, and me and my wife, and we got the house and the cars, and you have no idea what the kids are going through.
Well, but I think probably the parents don't often know. And
right.
There are some support systems that exist and did exist then, but sometimes it's cost prohibitive. Jack and Jill, for example, is an organization, right? But my mom, she was working 3 jobs.
She's working, right?
And she was trying to keep us in an apartment. We weren't. Look, I played the clarinet and I got to play football, but she had holes in her stockings.
Man.
So like when I tell you that I didn't know that we were poor, I didn't know that we were struggling, I didn't know that we didn't have, because my mother made me feel that way. Christmases were huge for Cannon, but she paid for Christmases for the next
overtime
years.
And
for the next every Christmas cost her 2 years. So I'm saying, a lot of times people, she didn't know Chicago. She was from Cleveland. She didn't know Chicago, didn't know where she was moving into. And a lot of folks, you might be from the South Shore, but you don't know what it's going to be like when you move your kids out. And what's more, your kids won't tell you half the time.
That's the thing about it. Your kids won't tell you a lot of the stuff they're going through. As parents, we have to be able to anticipate, though. I have to be able to anticipate. For some reason, when we turn into parents, it's like we get stupid. We'll say, we'll move this kid. Hey, little Cannon, we're moving from South Shore to Inglewood, pack up and you're going to have your own bedroom. And a parent who, like your parent didn't grow up in Chicago, but a parent who grew up in Chicago should be able to know, okay, I got a kid in high school and this might affect them moving neighborhoods, the gangs and everything. And a parent should know, if I'm moving a kid from the city and taking them to an alt-right place where there's only where there's 98% pink people, when any place where there's 98% of anything, usually they're there for a reason. It's because they don't want to be around anybody else. That's why they're there. They'll package it in other stuff, better schooling. It's a big dog whistle, but they don't. Go ahead, bro.
It's it's non-urban. They're suburban. You know what I mean? Suburban. You know what I'm saying? It's out away from the urban area. So if you're from the urban area, which is, a dog whistle for bad, dog whistle for bad, and you move to the suburbs, you have no idea what your children are going through. You think they're in a better environment.
But that's why we're here.
Right.
Because, man, what Ron Time went through, and it can mess your mind up, man. So, with Drew and, sucking your lips in and holding your butt, and so for me, just from hearing it, I haven't walked it. For me, I would be aware of it, and I would have my kid in some program in the city somewhere, or I would be dropping them off and leaving them at the basketball court every Saturday and letting them swim or sink. I mean, something, so that he or she can get that balance. Maybe we need knowledge of self programs, and knowledge of self-support programs in these areas for us, because I hear about, a lot of our brothers are professionals and they have kids. And I hear a lot about, what their kids
reminded me a whole lot of your idea, man, the Saturday schools, man. I mean,
yeah. So what measure, since we're along these lines, what measure should the Black community do, in your mind, to close the socioeconomic gap with us and our pink counterparts?
So to me, I think that's an easy question, to be honest with you. I think we need to start to use each other as resources in ways that we simply don't. Most of us don't know what our friends do for a living. Most of us, because we don't know that, can't refer our friends for purposes of growing their respective businesses and so forth. We need to start to use our dollars in a controlled way, so that when we find out somebody supports Trump, for example,
right?
If Home Depot supports Trump, we decide we're no longer going to support Home Depot.
Right.
If you go to, I know there's been some back and forth about, so I'm going to use Taco Bell for this example, but I'm not necessarily saying that they support him. But if Taco Bell supports Trump, and we collectively say we're not buying Taco Bell for 2 months, for 60 days, that will be felt. We are the largest economic engine in this country.
Yeah.
Not in the state, in this country. And if we decide for 30 days, we won't spend money at a certain location, that will immediately change behavior. I'm not teaching anybody anything. We know this because you can look at what happened in the 60s. The bus boycotts, people got their heads beat in because they would not get on a bus.
Right.
Huh? They would not spend their money. They got their butts whooped because they would not spend their money. That's the power of money. You beat me up because I won't spend my money the way you want me to.
Right.
Right now, we won't get our butts whooped necessarily, but we still miss the boat in using that power. And the other thing is, we have a tendency a lot of times to feel like we're disconnected from the political process. And as much as I understand that, I don't agree with it. On a practical level, if I decide that Tory is going to look out for me and mine and will be more concerned about why 8 out of 10 tickets that get written for the divvy bikes happen on the south side when 80% of the use happens on the north side. And he's going to make sure that the police in my community won't write tickets for that sort of thing. Then I'm going to vote for Tory. If I know Tory is going to make it so that restaurants and bars and flower shops are going to have better opportunities to thrive in my community, then I'm going to vote for him.
Absolutely.
And when he finds, when Mills is right next to him, and now we've got sort of a power base so that we can start to drive economic forces, then that's how you change things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. So I mean, those are great ideas. I mean, jewels, gems all day long. Those are great. And I've heard some of the things from other people. So you're saying, recycle our money, be focused, realizing that we are huge, we're consumers, and that's power. And also the vote. The vote is as valuable as our dollar, or I don't know if you said as valuable, but the vote is going to be important too.
Very important.
Here's how this is what we, like, for example, look at George Floyd. You had protests all across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just all across the world.
Mm-hmm.
Who was gathering? Every boot that hit the ground should have been assigned to an email address, and somebody should have that information so that when something happens and it's in Macon, Georgia, or if something happens and it's in Boston, Massachusetts, something happens and it's in Inglewood, California, I should be able to say in an email to hundreds of thousands of people who are already out in the streets and that are foot soldiers, we need you here. But I don't know that that's happening on the scale that it needs to happen. Right? We don't capture our power when we flex it. And I think in some ways, and the other thing is that we don't tend to drive the narrative. We don't control the narrative in the ways that we should be in many instances. We don't manage media.
For example.
Well, for example, I mean, you look at, in my case, with Sandra Bland's situation, right? Immediately after that incident happened, they started trying to denigrate her. They tried to vilify her. They called, she was a drug addict and all of these other things. And if you don't immediately try and redirect the way that conversation is driven, let everyone know that she's a graduate going back to her alma mater to get a job.
Yes,
if you don't give people a narrative, then they won't know what to say. If you look at what Trump does, as much as I know you guys are not a political show, so forgive me. I can't stand.
We invited you to the show, so you speak your mind, bro. Speak your mind.
And we're for the advancement of us, and
that's right.
Black
Expansion.
And you are, we're open to everything that helps us grow.
And if you can wake self-love and say self-love up, both of us up to something and change our mind, I'm open to that.
Amen. And you look at Trump, and as much as I have difficult time stomaching him,
right?
If you look at what he does, he's a master at manipulating the way that people think. He says, getting corona was a godsend to me. Now you're going to see people talking about, it was a godsend. You'll talk to his supporters and they will say that to you, that getting sick is a godsend. That's going to be a narrative that they will drive and use from here on.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he is a master at driving the discussion. And if you drive the discussion, you have the ability to shape thought.
Yeah, and I know you're gonna check the chat, but he's Donald Trump is like a master of deception. You know, he rear-ended you, right? You know, you're at a light and he just rear-ends you, and you get out and you say, "Man, you rear-ended me, and my kids are in the back." And he says, "You know, and I burned down your house on my way over here too." You know what I mean?